The Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and your local cable provider presents Cable Reports. Join us now as Cable Reports brings you up to date on current issues facing the Commonwealth through discussions with your local legislators and other policymakers from across Virginia.
From the General Assembly and the City of Richmond, I'm Woody Evans for Cable Reports and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. We are pleased to have four members representing the Portsmouth and surrounding areas. Senator Louise Lucas, it's so good to see you.
Good morning. It's good to be back.
Senator Locke, good to see you.
Thank you so much.
Delegate Joannou, great to see you, sir.
My pleasure.
Delegate Matt James, good to see you, sir.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So what's happening in Portsmouth in terms of its geography, in terms of the diversity of constituencies you represent, and the economy?
Well, things are really a lot of activity. I'm glad to be up in Richmond. As you know, probably the most pressing thing, especially in Portsmouth, has been the tolls on the downtown Midtown Tunnel. As you know, I've tried to introduce several bills to help not only the citizens but the business community to mitigate the costs that we're going to be impacted, because I truly think that's going to change not only the financial but the economic development shape of our region. So, you know, we're just up here trying to do some help on that subject. We do appreciate what the governor did in terms of buying down the earlier years of the tolls, but hopefully there's a long-term solution that can help mitigate that. We also are interested in coming up with bills that will help economic opportunities for not only the citizens but the business community, and just come up with some good transportation bills.
And Delegate Joannou, transportation is a huge need in your district, as it is throughout the Commonwealth. A lot of people don't understand how important that is versus Northern Virginia. Talk to us about that.
Well, very basically, the problem that I've seen is how do we pay for it? Tunnels cost a lot more than bridges do, and because of that, we have an extra financial strain. I also put a bill in this year to say that, contrary to what the court said, the court has said that fees and tolls are not taxes. Well, anytime the government takes my money, I think that's a tax. And so the committee didn't think that, and they killed the bill.
But however you label it, it is...
It's a tax.
Right, right.
You know, and I just want to be fair about it. You know, the downtown tunnel is not increased in capacity any. You had 4 lanes, 2 going and 2 coming, and that's been paid for by the citizens. And it's not fair to impose such a high tax. You know, it's about $7.40 for trucks coming from Norfolk to Portsmouth.
That much, $7.40
for trucks. It's $1.84 in prime time, and they keep switching the hours around when prime time is. $1.84 and then $1.54, I think. I may be wrong on that at other times. So it's not fair to our citizens. And not only that, I have asked the people at the tunnel, so what do we do with ODU and Norfolk State and Eastern Virginia Medical School? How do students get there? You know, you're talking about a lot of pressure. It costs so much to go to school anyway. They come out with debt. It's not fair. Not fair when you have a utility, you have a tunnel that has already been paid for, and you're not adding anything to it to put $1.84 and $7.40. How do the trucks from Norfolk get over to Portsmouth to the port? How do the food line trucks that are coming down 460 get to Norfolk to bring in food line trucks so you can eat? Well, that's going to increase the cost of those goods coming in there. So we've tried to do everything we can, all of us have, and to try to protect the citizens on our side and be fair about it. And we haven't been able to do that.
And Senator Locke, as I understand it, this contract was entered into without much consultation with you and other members of your delegation.
Absolutely. And it came as a surprise because the contract itself was a very bad contract. And it kind of slapped us as legislators in the face, as well as the local city council members, not knowing what actually was in this contract and the impact that it was going to have on the city of Portsmouth. And the city of Portsmouth is the locality that is most negatively impacted by the imposition of these tolls.
And I take it you're hearing those same complaints from your constituents as well.
Absolutely. I've represented Portsmouth here in the Senate now for 23 years. And this was one of the, I guess you could say, the most resounding outcries that we've heard from the citizens in the city of Portsmouth, which is the reason why last year I introduced a budget amendment for, well, I introduced it for $500 million, but only got $100 million. But that was helpful in that we were able to buy down the tolls until February 1st this year. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who don't realize that that's the reason why they didn't have to pay the tolls until February 1st this year. But I have another budget amendment in, and we've not heard very much about that yet, waiting to see how I'm going to fare with the bill that I'm calling a toll mitigation bill. Since we're looking for a long-term sustainable source of funding for transportation, I could think of no better way to come up with the kind of funding that we need other than the casino. So I put my casino bill in for the second year in a row now. And just to explain to you why I thought that it was, why I think this is necessary, we've got over at down at the harbor, the number 6 casino is going to be built, and already the estimates are that that casino is going to generate $700 million plus, with about roughly 50% of that money coming from Virginia. So in Maryland, correct. So that money is going to be going into Maryland, coming from citizens who live in the Commonwealth of Virginia. If you consider that one venue, and then you add to that Anne Arundel Mills, which is where people go all the time. I go myself. And you add into that Charlestown, you add Dover Downs, and all of the other outlets that people go to. Conservatively, Virginia is exporting, conservatively, $1.5 to $2 billion a year of money out of Virginia, by way of Virginia citizens who are going other places looking for gaming as their source of entertainment. And a lot of people want to talk about all of the myths associated with it. Well, we have information that defies all of that. Senator Locke and I have done research, and there have been other people in Portsmouth who've done research, and the myths are just not true. And the truth of the matter is, I have people from the police department saying, we need something like this. We need this as an engine to help generate some economic development. Look at all the other businesses that could spring off from a casino, and the extra business that will, jobs that the law enforcement will have. And so the study that I had done after I introduced the bill last year indicates that conservatively, if we had one casino in Virginia, and if it was in Portsmouth or somewhere nearby, it would generate anywhere from $300 to $600 million in revenue that we could use to help buy down the tolls, and then we could help to bring down the real estate tax in the city of Portsmouth, which is one of the highest real estate tax bases in the Hampton Roads area. In addition to that, we have one of the lowest per capita incomes of any other sister cities. And so Portsmouth is in dire need of something like this casino, and I think that the members of the legislature ought to let Portsmouth decide its own destiny rather than a handful of people in the room deciding for us.
Great. Senator Locke, before I get back to the members of the House of Delegates, I wanted you to tell us about the recent reorganization in the State Senate and what it means to you in terms of pursuing legislation.
Well, on yesterday, Senator Linwood Lewis was sworn in as the 20th Democrat in the Senate, and that gave us a 20-20 split. And with the Lieutenant Governor being a Democrat, it made the Senate democratically controlled. And as a result, we reorganized. We voted on new rules, reorganized committees, and it gave me a committee chair as well as Senator Lucas a committee chair.
Congratulations to both.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have general laws and technology, and she has education and health, which is a very, very pivotal committee in this Senate. And I was also added to Senate Finance, which is very important for our region.
Great. Delegate Joannou, we've talked a little bit about economic development and how to stimulate that. Talk to us about the importance of the Port of Virginia.
I think the Port of Virginia is important to not only the Tidewater region, or I should say Hampton Roads, but also, I've been around a long time, but also to the entire state. And they're talking about possibly, they will be expanding eventually at Craney Island. And when that takes place, I think we'll probably be the largest distributor of goods on the East Coast as far as the port is concerned. We've got a new management team in there, which is an excellent team, and I think we're moving in the correct direction. I'm just hoping that the total economy, the federal government does something so that it stimulates everything, because if we're going to trade with other countries, that we have to be strong, and the dollar has to be the dominant currency in the world, which it is today. So, and we've had our problems on the national level, but it all started way back with Woodrow Wilson. This is not something that happened within 2-3 years, and people don't seem to understand that the problem started way back when, and it's culminated into the debt that we have today. But that's on the federal level. But the port itself is really an engine, and it's generating a lot of jobs, and I'm hoping it in the future will generate even more. But more importantly than that is to have our population, because right now Portsmouth is in a situation where we have the Naval Hospital, you have the 5th Coast Guard District, or 3rd Coast Guard District, and you also have the shipyard. The Norfolk Naval Shipyard is in Portsmouth, the Naval Hospital is in Portsmouth. And right now, about 90% of the people who work at those two installations don't live in the city. Okay. So the problem then becomes, if you put a toll, and that's why all of us have been fighting this toll. It's not fair, you know. I don't know how else I can put it, but it's like a stranglehold. What happens to our region in the future? Because when you talk to the colleges, they say, well, the maintenance people are going to need an increase in salary in order to, the cafeteria people are going to need an increase. The lower paid people are going to need an increase. Who's going to pay for that toll? And that's 58 years with a 3.5% increase every year, and they get a piece of the action on any other tunnel on that Elizabeth River. And this governor has already said, the governor we have today said that it was the worst contract he's ever seen. It's unbelievable. I don't know how in the world somebody put this contract together. I'm just upset over that, but not too much I can do, because none of us had the opportunity to vote on this on the floor of the House. And this is a project that is affecting not only Portsmouth, but everybody that lives in the region. You know, it's unbelievable. And if they continue to tax like they are, and they put a toll on the Hampton to Norfolk tunnel, you're not going to be able to get into Norfolk or Virginia Beach. What happens 10 years down the road? Where are the people going to come from to work over there? You know, when the job's over on this side of the river. But anyway, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. We appreciate your passion about the issue. And Delegate James, I know that you have some legislation in to try to mitigate the impact of what's going on, especially in terms of businesses.
Yeah, what I introduced specifically 2 bills. One was to allow any person, including people that don't live in Portsmouth, that have a higher than average income, a higher unemployment rate than the state, they could get 50% of the amount back on their taxes as a tax deduction. I also introduced a bill with a budget amendment and capped it at $1 million for any company that could show that the tunnel construction reduced their profitability. They could apply for a cash grant of up to $10,000 per company. Those bills did not survive out of subcommittee, basically along party lines, but we're going to continue to try to do something. I think we haven't given up. There might be something we can do. I've talked to the governor about that, because clearly there's going to be an issue. I got a meeting later on this week with the new Secretary of Commerce and Trade, because I think that we need to approach it a couple of ways. We need to try to mitigate the 58 years of tolling, because that's going to be a financial burden. If you look at what the tolls will cost on the year 58, if they max out, it's an incredible amount. And we also need to focus, I think we'll also focus on things like economic development, workforce development, because I think in a lot of ways when you talk to business people, assuming we can get the transportation challenges fixed, we have now at Hampton Roads, we're sort of blessed. We have now a job shortage. we got a skill shortage. We have to work in workforce development, get into K through 12, higher learning, and even we have, we're trying to come up with some legislation to address those long-term displaced workers, because they need some retraining. So I think we need to do that on a lot of fronts to get our constituents up so that they can raise their standard of living.
Now, last year, Senator Lucas, there was a lot of social legislation that passed the General Assembly, and I understand you and Senator Locke are attempting to reverse at least some of that momentum. Talk to us about the ultrasound bill and others.
Well, Senator Locke has put in a bill, and I'm going to help her with it, because in December I had surgery, major surgery in fact, and as a result of having the kind of surgery I did, I was required to have transvaginal ultrasound, and I've got to tell you, that is the absolute god-awful worst kind of an examination a woman could have had. Oh, my God, could have. And I would not wish it on anybody. And so we're going to do a lot of work to try to make sure that women who are not medically required to have a transvaginal ultrasound, that they do not have to be forced into it. It is one of the worst examinations. And Senator Locke told me, do not go into the details. It is the most god-awful examination a woman could ever experience.
Senator Locke,
so
and that's your bill.
I put in the legislation to repeal the ultrasound law. And, of course, it goes through education and health, through the subcommittee and then the full committee. And hopefully, certainly with the change in the composition of the committees, at the very least, make it to the floor of the Senate.
Absolutely. And I chair education and health, and I'm hopeful that it will be repealed.
Great.
And the second one is the repeal on the insurance ban, which was put through on another piece of legislation to ban any insurance company for covering an abortion. So I have that one in as well. Unfortunately, it's not going through Ed and Health. It's going through Commerce and Labor. So that one may have a more difficult time.
Well, we're on the topic of health care. Medicaid expansion is another huge issue before the General Assembly. The new governor has made it a signature initiative on his behalf and his new administration. There's a lot of pushback on the House side. Where do you think that's going to wind up, Delegate Joannou?
Well, what I'm hoping is we'll get all the information we need within the next 6 to 8 months. I think it's going to take that long. There are a lot of questions that are unanswered, and for example, I asked a couple months ago, I should say, how many taxes are added, and there are about 20 that are added to the ACR, Americans, ARC. No. ARA.
I know what you mean. Right.
I wanted to get it straight. but anyway, I think that within a question, the problem on the House side is it's not a question of what has to be done. It's a question of how we do it and how much is it going to cost and who pays for it. And that's a problem that's tied in with the federal problem, because God forbid if let's assume that we go for it today and the feds for some reason cut back on it, how do we, I don't want to be in a position where I have to call somebody and say, look, we got to take your health care away from you. That's not the right way, in my opinion, to do it. So we got to be certain on what we do and how we do it, and then we can go forward with it. The problem is nobody really has read the entire bill, and it's huge, and it's different parts to it. And then there are amendments to it, there are executive orders that have been taken out. So it's in the process of changing, so we ought not jump into it until we have all the answers that we should have and make sure that all the people that have to be covered should be covered.
I serve on the Medication Innovation Reform Commission, MERC, and I received a briefing yesterday that said that there are going to be just a fewer people who will be applying for the Medicaid expansion than we had anticipated. And in fact, what we were told is if we were to go forward with it right now, we would save $1 billion a year. That was a briefing
by 2022.
Correct. And so I'm talking about that's how much we would be. That's how much money would come back to us. That's how much we would realize until 2022. So actually, instead of losing money, we will be gaining money to the tune of $1 billion a year through 2022. That's the briefing we had yesterday.
And of course, go ahead.
And with all due respect to my colleague, we don't have 6 to 8 months. By not expanding Medicaid, the Commonwealth of Virginia is losing $5 million a day through not expanding. And we're talking about a program where the federal government is going to pay for it 100% for the first 3 years, and then 90% thereafter. So, and in the meantime, we have 400,000 Virginians who are without medical coverage.
Delegate James, what happens to that $2 billion a year if the state of Virginia does not accept the federal funds to expand Medicaid?
It goes to the other states.
Goes to the other
and I think that's part of the challenge that and some of us have, and we have different opinions on that. But when I think it's a shame that when you look at the other states that have already accepted, I think most recently Utah, very conservative state, has accepted it, that, you know, everyone talks about one of the things I've heard for the last 4 years, the Virginia way. I would think the Virginia way would be to find ways to get access to money that they're not receiving, that other states are receiving.
But if I just comment on those points, the problem is that Medicaid now is about 20% of the Virginia budget. If we go forward with this, we're talking 40%. Now, in the short term, we're all right because those funds are general funds that they're going to be sending us, and those funds don't have to come down here. If there's a tightening in the federal budget, then we don't get that money. You know, and all I'm saying is I don't want to gamble on something that has coverage for you. We do have coverage. We are paying for the blind, the disabled. We're putting more money in. We do have a Medicaid program, and we're paying about 20% of our budget is where that money goes right now. So it's not as though we don't care. We do care. There are a lot of people being helped. It's not as many as I would like to see, but before I can go in, I've got to know who is going to pay for this. Those funds coming from the federal government are general dollars, which means that they don't have to keep giving it to us. They can cut it off tomorrow. There is nothing in the law that says these are mandated and you have to give it to them. It just says, well, here's some general funds that we're going to be putting in. Well, we all know that we can change that by a budgetary process in a year that we go through. And if we continue on borrowing money, you can't keep borrowing more than you have. So we've got to see where the federal government's going. There's 26 states that are not involved in it and 26 states that are. So I'm just saying to you, we're going slow and trying to find out and make sure that we're okay. How many people between the ages of 18 and 26 are going to get involved in the new Medicaid system? If they don't, then where does the money come in Virginia to pay for it? You just can't add, and we had testimony yesterday in Commerce and Labor on a subcommittee with the insurance companies. You just can't say, well, okay, we're going to do it, and then 2 years down the road, well, I might not be here, but I'm just saying to you, you know, I don't know how long I'll be able to continue, but I'm just saying that the problem is you got to make sure on something this important that it's going to be viable for the people that get involved in it, not only for today but forever. And that's what we're looking at right now. And it's hard to make that decision because if you make the wrong decision, down the road, we're going to have to raise taxes in Virginia so high that you're not going to be able to afford it. You're going to be screaming.
Senator Lucas, I take it, though, that from your perspective and Senator Locke, there will be something in the budget about Medicaid expansion.
Absolutely, there will be. And based on all of the information that I have received, there's no indication that we're going to be losing any money. In fact, we're going to be getting money back through 2022. And so with that, I mean, I think by the time we get to 2022, whatever bugs there are left in it, we would have ironed them out by then. And I just can't understand why people here in the legislature would want to see money that would be coming into Virginia go back into the big pot and get distributed to other states. Our taxpayers, that's our money. So we're actually talking about exporting money out of Virginia. There we go again, exporting money out of Virginia, and that's not what I consider the Virginia way.
Senator Locke, go ahead.
Just very quickly on that point, just very quickly, that money is going back to the general fund. It's not going to be split up by anybody. The money goes back, the process in which that money goes back. And you got to understand, it's very technical. It's going back as general funds.
But it's our money.
It doesn't go back into the medical system or into Medicaid. It can go into wars that are being fought overseas or wherever.
It's our money. It's Virginia money.
You know, this debate is not going to be settled here either. But, Senator Locke, I want you to talk about another health issue, mental health, because one of your colleagues suffered a real tragedy this year. This mental health issue goes back to Virginia Tech. We still haven't solved it. I don't know if it's solvable, but tell us what's going on and what's likely to happen.
It's solvable.
Yes, it is.
We just need to take the time to figure out the best way to do it. For example, why can't there be a state registry to let us all know the availability of beds, if that is the issue? And, you know, why can't we extend the time that a person can be detained if it is very clear that that individual has a mental issue and that person is suicidal or that person is homicidal? You know, why can't we do that? And the more I hear about what happened in Senator Deeds' case, we're talking about something that could have been preventable. You know, had he been detained longer, or a bed had been found.
Correct.
Now, we need to make sure, though, that those who may be a danger to themselves or others who we want to detain longer have their civil liberties protected as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's, unfortunately, one of the outcomes that'll happen, that unfortunately happened to the senator, is to raise the awareness that we have a problem. I mean, as recently as yesterday, we had a citizen come up in front of our subcommittee on Commerce and Labor and talked about how his daughter was in college and she had some issues, and he had to pay his own money. Luckily, he was an attorney and was able to pay it, but he fought to have it, and now she's back home doing much better. But, you know, you worry about the constituents that cannot afford that, what's happening there. So I think you'll see some movement on that issue very, very across the board. And I think, interestingly enough, that will move across party lines, too.
Great. We're out of time, unfortunately. Senator Louise Lucas, Senator Mamie Locke, Delegate Johnny Joannou, and Delegate Matthew James. Good to see you all. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching Cable Reports, brought to you by the Virginia Cable Telecommunications Association and Cox Communications, connecting Virginians to their government. Until next time, I'm Woody Evans.